Chapter 11. A Call from Oldenburg. Christmas Eve morning. I woke up early, feeling on top of the world. Even Queens looked attractive in the pale winter sunshine. I'd gone right home after lunch the previous day, and just slept and slept. It was time for breakfast at Slim Pete's diner down the street. "Good morning, Pete. It's great to see you, and just great to be alive. Merry Christmas." "What's wrong with you, Nat?" asked Pete. "Why aren't you miserable as usual?" "I've just escaped a 10-year jail sentence." "Oh, is that all? They should have locked you up and thrown away the key," Pete joked. "You sure know how to please your customers. A breakfast special, and a big sweet smile if you can remember how to do one," I said. After breakfast, I caught the number 7 train to Grand Central. Midtown Manhattan seemed more of a madhouse than usual, with crowds of shoppers desperately searching for last-minute presents. That reminded me, I still hadn't bought any. One look inside Macy's and I decided against it. There's nothing worse than a New York department store on Christmas Eve. I didn't get to the office until 10. "Morning, Nat. Feeling okay?" asked Stella. "Couldn't be better," I replied. "There's someone waiting in your office. Just arrived." I stepped through into my office. There was a middle-aged man sitting in the client's chair, large and overweight, and wearing an awful brown suit. It was Oldenburg. "Captain Oldenburg, what can I do for you on this beautiful morning?" "Morning, Marley. I wanted to talk some more about our friends, the Lakes." "And Tommy Lamb?" "Yeah, I'll get on to him in a minute. I was thinking about the interview with the Lakes. At first, we didn't get anywhere. They just kept saying, 'Oh, what a terrible mistake, and so sorry for wasting your time.' Then it got more interesting." "Go on," I said. "Robert Lake is the strangest character I've met for some time. By the way, I like the damage you did to his nose." I examined my right hand. "I sure hope it hurt him more than it hurt me," I said. "Lake seems to be deeply bored with life," continued Oldenburg. "Maybe he spent too long developing computer software. The papers are full of stories about Lake's software. The stock price is still falling. Lake ought to be a very worried man. That's what I can't figure out. He doesn't seem to be at all worried. I couldn't get much sense out of him. What the Lakes did to you is very serious. They could get 10 years in jail for trying to set you up. But all he said was, 'We lost that one. We didn't play our cards right.' He's not admitting to any connection with Tommy Lamb." He paused for a moment and then continued. "Angela Lake's scared, but she's still trying to be as cool as possible. It was like questioning the Ice Queen. I got some sense out of her, though. She's standing by her husband. But that early morning visit from Lamb has made her think. Wonder how long she'll remain faithful. By the way, she's asked for police protection." "You didn't give it to her." "No way, Marley. I want to see what happens. Either Robert Lake or Lamb is going to make a move, and I intend to be there when it happens. You should have seen Lamb's face when I told him the diamond necklace was now police evidence." "So what now, Oldenburg?" "We wait and see. Lamb knows that I've returned the claim ticket and key to Angela Lake. I want to see the 3 of them behind bars. But we need more evidence. This is the plan. We released the Lakes and Lamb and his boys first thing this morning, and now we have them all under surveillance. I'm going to make sure every one of them is put away for a long, long time." If I was in Robert Lake's shoes, I'd be terrified. He'd said he enjoyed taking chances and going for the big one. Oldenburg said he wasn't at all nervous. Just as well. You'd need to be made of iron to play against Tommy Lamb. I just felt glad to be out of it. Lamb and the lakes had all caused me more than enough trouble, but thankfully, they weren't my responsibility now. I needed to talk to Lena Rosenthal, so I decided to take a walk downtown. Outside, it was still below freezing. There were heavy snow clouds in the sky. A homeless woman was lying in a shop doorway, on a bed made out of dirty blankets and cardboard boxes. I put $10 in the plastic cup she was holding out. It took about 10 minutes to get to Lena's office on East 34th and Lexington Avenue. As I arrived, the first snowflakes were beginning to fall. "Nat, how are you feeling? Still in one piece after a night at police headquarters?" asked Lena. "I'm fine. Amazing what 15 hours sleep can do." Lena brought me up to date with what she had discovered. She had suspected the Lakes might have made a big insurance claim. In fact, such a claim had been made with Pacific Central Insurance for $10 million in stolen jewelry, including the diamond necklace. Insurance companies never like paying out money, and Pacific Central thought losing all that jewelry was just a bit too careless. But that claim might just have succeeded if I had been less suspicious and believed Angela Lake. "Now that reminds me, Nat," said Lena. "Our investigator went into the Lake's past histories. This should interest you." Lena handed me a color copy of a magazine article with a picture of a group of students standing beneath the Washington Square Arch. The headline read, "New Star at Performing Arts Festival." Lena had marked the sentence, "Angela Webster stars as Kate in Oklahoma State University's production of the classic Cole Porter musical Kiss Me Kate, the must-see show of this year's festival." In the center of the group was Angela Webster, now Lake, with wavy brown hair. "Will you look at that?" I said. "Not only is Angela Lake not a blonde, she's not from Coney Island either. Anyway, this proves one thing. She's a good actress. Maybe she needed those acting skills when she married Robert Lake's money." As I left the building, I started thinking about what I had been through in the last few days. I'd been arrested for robbery. I'd spent a night at police headquarters. Then I'd been released, and Captain Oldenburg had started being pleasant to me. Maybe it was time my life went back to normal. But I had been back in the office only 5 minutes before Estella put a call through. It was Oldenburg. "Marley, it's happened. Tommy Lamb has made the first move. Angela Lake has been kidnapped, and Lamb's got the claim ticket." "When?" I asked. 11 o'clock this morning. He met her outside the Lake's apartment. The doorman saw everything. Lamb spoke to her briefly, and she got in his car." "Yeah? If it's one of Tommy Lamb's invitations, you don't refuse." "Then my boys followed them downtown to Grand Central. One of Lamb's bodyguards picked up the briefcase from the parcel room and returned it to Lamb's car. Then they managed to lose them in the midtown traffic. I should have done the job myself, but we know that Lamb isn't pleased about what he found inside the briefcase. He phoned Robert Lake. He wants $5 million in jewelry, cash, or both in exchange for his wife's safe return. And by the way, he told Lake not to speak to the police." "But you know everything?" I asked. "Lake seems to be coming to his senses. He called me immediately," replied Oldenburg. "I wish you good luck with our Mr. Lamb." "Sorry, Marley, but this isn't the end of the story for you. Lamb wants a go-between to take messages between him and Lake. He told Lake that he would only speak to you. He says you're a professional and the only guy he can trust. We're going to pay Robert Lake a visit at his apartment. I'll pick you up in 5 minutes." I'd had enough of Lamb and the Lakes, and anything connected with them. But like it or not, I was involved again. I explained to Stella what had happened. "I don't like it, Nat," she said. "Neither do I." Another opportunity for me to play the good citizen. Chapter 12. An Appointment with Lamb. Now the snow was falling more heavily as the police car made its way slowly uptown on Madison Avenue to 86th Street. The subway would have been quicker, but police captains don't take the subway. Inside the lobby at the Lake's apartment building, everything was much the same as it had been on my last visit. Except this time, the doorman wasn't smiling unpleasantly. They needed me now. Oldenburg and I were shown into Robert Lake's office. There was a new carpet on the floor. It must have been difficult to clean off the blood. I was trying to calculate what they'd spent on carpets when Lake's personal assistant entered. She was the perfect host. "Captain Oldenburg and Mr. Marley, do take a seat. Mr. Lake's expecting you. Can I get you anything?" "Espresso coffee and a large scotch," I said. "Just coffee for me," said Oldenburg. The assistant went into the next room. A moment later, a door opened, and Robert Lake entered. This time, he was wearing round glasses. There was a bandage over his nose and bruising on his face. I admired my work. Lake gave a faint smile. "Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Please excuse me. I am exhausted and suffering stress." "That's nothing to the stress you caused me, buddy," I shouted. "You could begin by apologizing." Oldenburg was nervous. "Marley, this isn't the time." "If this isn't the time, what damn time is then?" I pointed a finger in Lake's face. "Never play games with me again. Thanks to you, I was nearly sent to jail. I've got Tommy Lamb to thank for the fact that I'm free. Now I don't know who the bigger rat is, you or Lamb. I won't do anything for you until I get an apology." "Marley, go easy," warned Oldenburg. "A proper apology," I shouted. At last, Lake spoke. "You're right, Mr. Marley. You should have an apology. I am sincerely sorry for all that I have done, and I will do everything possible to put right the wrongs that I have caused you." "Thank you. That made me feel a whole lot better." We got down to business over coffee. "Tell Marley what happened this morning," said Oldenburg. Lake was no longer the self-confident little man. In a low, quiet voice, he retold the events of the morning, and how he had received a demand from Lamb for $5 million in cash, jewelry, or both. "I thought I had everything under control. It didn't work out," said Lake. "Too late for self-pity, Lake. It's a rough, tough world out there," I said. Then I turned to Oldenburg. "We've got to act carefully. You took a chance coming here. We don't want Lamb to know the police are involved." "So who's in charge of this case, you or me, Marley?" demanded Oldenburg. "If I have to be the go-between, I do things my way, not your way. Understood?" I said. Okay, understood." "What happens next?" I asked Lake. "Lamb will call with further instructions. He wants to talk." I thought he might. "I trust you have the payment, Lake?" "Of course. My corporation is a major software developer." "That's not what the Wall Street Journal is saying." Lake didn't like that. "I don't need reminding, Mr. Marley. I shall pay Mr. Lamb the full amount in jewelry," he said. "Okay. This time, I'm making the rules," I said. "These are my conditions, Lake. You have to be totally honest with me. You tell me everything. Do exactly as I say at all times. Don't think, don't make decisions. I do that. Can you have the jewelry here this afternoon?" "Yes." "So, where is it now? We'd expected to find it in the briefcase at Grand Central." "At the Chase Manhattan Bank on Fifth Avenue. But the police have the diamond necklace." "I need all the jewelry here. We may have to be ready to move quickly. Oldenburg, can you get the necklace here this afternoon?" Have a plainclothes officer bring it. I'll see to it, said Oldenburg. And Oldenburg, I don't want to see uniformed officers near this building. And everybody, no decisions without asking me first. Lake's assistant came in while we were talking.
Mr. Lamb is on the phone. Wants to speak to Mr. Marley personally.
I picked up the phone on Lake's desk. Marley speaking.
Listen carefully. Leave the building. Go across to the 86th Street subway station. Take any downtown train.
The line went dead. I've been told to take a ride on the subway, I said. I'll have a couple of my boys follow you, said Oldenburg. I'm in charge. I do this alone or not at all. I didn't know what to expect on the subway. I sat in a center car and waited. The train sped downtown. 77th Street, 68th, 59th. At 42nd, crowds of people with their Christmas shopping poured into the car. It was standing room only. I gave up my seat to a tired-looking mother with 2 crying children. Someone crashed into me and pushed through to the next car. Watch where you're going, buddy, I shouted. I looked down. There was a piece of paper sticking out of my coat pocket. The note read, "Get off at 14th Street, Union Square. Take a crosstown L train to 14th Street and 8th Avenue." I did as I was told and changed trains. I sat there reading the public health information notices in English and Spanish on the walls of the car. The L train had reached the end of the line, but I hadn't gotten any more instructions yet. All I could do was get off. Another guy crashed into me and rushed off without apologizing. I was beginning to feel like a punching bag in a gym. Another piece of paper was sticking out of my coat pocket. It read simply, "Walk west along 14th Street." Manhattan changes so quickly. I was now just below the Chelsea area. Not a skyscraper anywhere. Plenty of traditional New York brownstone houses. 5 or 6 floors with fire escapes on the fronts of the buildings. The neighborhood was full of little bars, restaurants, and stores. As I walked toward the Hudson River waterfront, it changed yet again. Parking lots and factories, some working, some empty. The snow was falling steadily. It made everywhere peaceful and quiet. That felt strange in Manhattan. I was almost at the end of 14th Street. I could see the river across 10th and 11th Avenues. I didn't have time to admire the view of New Jersey in the distance. A black stretch limo had stopped in front of me. The windows were as black as the paint. The car looked as inviting as an NYPD cell. A back window was lowered slightly. I was ordered to get in. Chapter 13. The Deal. Inside the car, the 2 bodyguards sat like statues along the back seat. Tommy Lamb looked very relaxed. Another morning, another tie-pin, with the largest white diamond I'd ever seen a man wearing.
"Good afternoon, Mr. Marley. So pleased you could come. A drink?"
Lamb offered. "I don't feel like drinking," I replied.
"Marley, people who refuse me are either very brave or very foolish."
"Let's just say I don't like guys who drive around Manhattan in stretch limos," I said.
"That's not very polite of you."
"I'm not here to be polite, Lamb." We had already stopped calling each other Mister. I knew the meeting would be short and businesslike.
"Then we understand each other, Marley," said Lamb. "I asked for you because you're a professional. The Lakes are amateurs. I need someone like you to keep Robert Lake under control. He's the problem."
"I don't trust him," I said, "and I don't really care what happens to him."
"Agreed, but he's still necessary. A small matter of $5 million. I need guarantees from your end, Marley. The first is the payment, in money or jewelry or both. So far, I've only received a pair of earrings.
Payment in jewelry will be ready this afternoon, I said.
Good. The second is that the police will not be involved. I want them kept out of this. If I learn that the police are involved, my assistants will kill you and the Lakes.
The statues on the back seat came to life and grinned. They were looking forward to it. A murder would obviously make their Christmas merry. You've made yourself very clear, Lamb. I also need a guarantee from you. Is Angela Lake safe and well? Lamb passed me a videotape.
Play that tape to Lake when you return to the Lake's apartment. You will see that Mrs. Lake is well. Mrs. Lake also has a message that her husband should hear. I think he'll enjoy the show.
The bodyguard smiled again.
After you have seen Lake again, go home and have a good night's sleep. Report to the Lake's apartment by 9 tomorrow morning.
Lamb handed me a cell phone.
You will receive a call on this phone. Make sure you have a car and driver ready, and have the payment and Robert Lake with you, or the deal is off.
Lamb's car had been heading uptown on Amsterdam Avenue. It came to a stop just behind Lincoln Center. Lamb pointed at the door, obviously his way of saying goodbye. Working for Robert Lake had its advantages, though. I could now charge expenses. I started with a taxi across town. Of course, I'm a strong believer in public transport, but you tend not to believe in something so strongly when you're not paying for it. Central Park in the snow looked even more like a scene from a Christmas card. That reminded me, I hadn't sent any Christmas cards. Never mind. People would understand. I usually forgot anyway. The doorman couldn't have been more polite in the lobby at the Lake's apartment.
Good afternoon, Mr. Marley, sir.
I'm not used to being called Mr. Marley, sir, but I didn't let it go to my head. I've spoken to Lamb, I said to Lake. He's given me his instructions. But first, there's the matter of my fee to sort out.
But Mr. Marley...
Don't talk, Lake. Just listen. When your lovely wife visited me at my office, she gave me $2,000 for my fee and expenses. That money found a good home at the South Bronx Neighborhood Center. I'll need a further $5,000 for my fee and essential expenses. I want it in cash, and no $1,000 bills. Bars really don't like changing them. Lake said nothing but just nodded. Then he unlocked a drawer in his desk and pulled out a pile of bills. He counted out $5,000 and handed it to me. Taking that money didn't make me feel proud of myself, but I had a business to run and rent to pay. The Lakes had already cost me more than enough in time and money. Now, have you got the payment for Lamb ready? I asked. Lake removed a painting from the wall. Behind it was a wall safe, which he unlocked. He took out a briefcase and opened it. It was full of rocks. The diamond necklace that Oldenburg had returned lay on top of a pile of other jewelry. It all looked good. Lock it up for the night, I said. I'm expecting a call here from Lamb at 9 tomorrow morning. When I get his instructions, you're coming with me. I want your car and driver ready.
Why? Do I have to?
Lamb insists. And if anything goes wrong, I know who to blame, I said.
Mr. Marley, is my wife safe?
Well, aren't you just the perfect caring husband? I thought you'd never ask. I've got a video from Lamb for you to watch. The video was poor quality, but Angela Lake was there all right, sitting alone in a cheap hotel room. She spoke.
Robert, I have a message for you from Mr. Lamb. I'm fine. They're looking after me. Mr. Lamb says to make sure there are no mistakes. Have all the jewelry with you. Follow the instructions exactly. He says to watch closely now.
Angela Lake was shaking. One of Lamb's bodyguards pressed a knife against Angela's throat, then took it away. For a moment, there was a white mark where the metal had been pressed against her smooth skin. Lamb was right. Knives are far more frightening than guns. Lake didn't react in any way. He just stared at the television.
"What are you going to do?"
asked Lake. "Nothing just now," I replied.
"I'm paying you $5,000 to—"
"Shut it. You disgust me. You're paying me $5,000 to think. Something that you're obviously not very good at. Make sure you're ready at 8:30 tomorrow morning. I'm out of here." Outside, the air smelled fresh, cold, and clean. I breathed in deeply. I took a taxi back to East 43rd Street. More expenses to charge to Lake. I could have walked quicker. Any more snow, and New York would come to a complete stop. Stella gave me a warm welcome back at the office.
"Nat, I'm so glad to see you. I was so worried."
"It was nothing much, Stella. Just another ride around town with Lamb. Here's something more interesting. I got paid." I spread the $5,000 out on the desk.
Now that's what I call interesting,"
she said. "And will you ask Joe to come over now? I'm meeting Tommy Lamb tomorrow, and I'm going to need backup."
"What's the deal with Lamb?"
"I have to be at the Lake's apartment tomorrow at 9 to get instructions. From then on, I don't know how Lamb wants to play it. I had to make a call to Oldenburg. It wasn't to wish him a Merry Christmas. Marley here. I've just left Robert Lake. Everything's ready for tomorrow. We just have to wait for Lamb's instructions now."
So, where do we come in?
Oldenburg asked. "I may be going on a mystery tour tomorrow to meet Lamb, but I'm not going alone. I want backup."
That's sensible,
replied Oldenburg. "I need 3 cell phones. One for me, one for the NYPD, and one for my colleague, Joe. I need them all set up so that no one else can listen in.
No problem, Marley.
And I want police backup with unmarked cars. Have your people standing by anywhere at a safe distance. Let's say 90th and 5th, from 8:30 tomorrow morning."
We'll be there.
"Sorry, Oldenburg. Does this mean you won't be able to enjoy Christmas in the warmth and comfort of your family?"
No problem. With my 3 teenagers, it'll be a pleasure to be out of the house. Marley, you'll have all the backup you need. The equipment will be with you in an hour. I'll send someone to set it all up for you.
Half an hour later, Joe arrived. I explained the situation. "Joe, you still have those 2 guns at home, the police special and the shotgun?"
Sure, boss. They haven't been fired in years, though.
"Clean the guns and bring them tomorrow."
Don't you want a gun, boss?
"No. You know I don't like carrying them. This is the plan. You'll have a cell phone to keep in touch with me. Then you'll be able to follow Lake's car. Keep well out of sight. There's not going to be much traffic tomorrow. When we stop for the meeting, try to get in close. I don't care how you do it. I want you to be around if things get nasty." By that evening, the arrangements were made and we had the equipment. I had full backup, Joe and the NYPD. It was almost time to relax. Time to spread a little Christmas cheer. "Guys, it's Christmas Eve," I said. "We're going to be kind of busy tomorrow. Let's relax over some food. I'm taking you both out for dinner. I've got a table reserved at Smith & Wolenski's restaurant."
Nat, you could say goodbye to $500 with the 3 of us eating there, exclaimed Stella.
"Correction, Stella. Lake Software will say goodbye to $500. It's going to be on their expense account. Tonight, we're going to enjoy ourselves. We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow." Chapter 14. Christmas Day. Christmas Day is the one day of the year when it's easy to take a car into Manhattan. No traffic jams, and you can always find a parking space. I don't know why more people don't do it. The morning was cold and unpleasant, with freezing fog coming in off the East River. The side streets off the main avenues were still covered in the previous night's snow. Robert Lake's car, a blue Mercedes, stood outside his apartment building with its engine running. Not good for the environment, but we'd be grateful for the warmth inside the car. I knew Joe and Oldenburg would be somewhere in the area waiting for us to move. I could depend on them to keep out of sight. I went inside. Lake was waiting for me in the lobby with the briefcase. I quickly checked it over. Everything seemed to be in order. Now it was time to deal with Lake. "Stand up and put your hands behind your back," I said.
"What the hell are you doing?"
he demanded. "Just do it before I have to get rough." I tied his hands.
"What's all this? Am I some sort of criminal?"
he asked. "Yes, Lake. That's exactly what you are. Nothing personal. The less you can do, the better. I just feel safer with you under control." The cell phone Lamb had given me rang. Lamb gave me brief instructions.
JFK Airport. Write this number. Call me when you get close.
Then the line went dead. I made a quick note, then pulled Lake outside. "You and I are going to take a little ride," I said. I put Lake in the back of the car, and I sat with the driver. It wouldn't be comfortable for him tied up, but I didn't care. I gave the driver $100 and said to him, "It's too bad you have to work on Christmas Day. I hope this makes up for it. I'm in charge of this operation. You don't take any orders from Lake. Understood?"
"You're the boss, Mr. Marley,"
he said. First stop, JFK. I relaxed in warmth and comfort. I held the briefcase tightly. It was all happening. I had the cell phone from Oldenburg in my pocket. If Joe and the NYPD didn't pick up the signal, we'd be in deep trouble. The only thing I could do was cross my fingers and hope. The car made its way carefully through the deep snow and made a right onto 2nd Avenue. At least the main avenues were clear. I called Joe. "Marley here. We're going downtown on 2nd, heading for JFK Airport."
"We're behind you at a safe distance, boss,"
replied Joe.
"Receiving you loud and clear. Let's go,"
said Oldenburg. We crossed the 59th Street Bridge over to Queens. The fog was growing thicker as we turned off Queens Boulevard onto Woodhaven Boulevard. Soon we were on Cross Bay Boulevard, approaching JFK. A few car lights appeared out of the fog from time to time. Probably families visiting relatives for Christmas lunch. I called my backup. "We're on Cross Bay Boulevard," I said. "I don't want to see you guys anywhere near this car, right?"
"You got it,"
said Joe.
"Relax, Marley. You're working with professionals,"
said Oldenburg. I took out Lamb's phone and punched in the number Lamb had given me.
"Where are you, Marley?"
asked Lamb. "On Cross Bay Boulevard, almost at JFK," I said. "Keep going. Head for long-term parking. Call again when you're closer." The phone went quiet. I called Joe and Oldenburg to tell them. JFK must be one of my least favorite areas of New York's 5 boroughs. The parking lots and airline terminals seem to go on forever. Mile after mile of total ugliness. Once you arrive at JFK, you only want to do one thing: escape from it. The signs for the long-term parking lots started to appear. I called Lamb's number again. Lamb said simply,
"Parking lot 7.
I needed my backup. "Guys, it's parking lot 7. I think this'll be the meeting point." I had an immediate answer from Joe, but where was Oldenburg? If I couldn't get in touch with him, he would only have a rough idea where we were in this endless row of parking lots. I tried again and again. No success. Joe was with me, so no need to panic. Yet. I told the driver to take his time. He had no choice but to take his time in the fog.
Finally, we arrived at the entrance. There was something familiar about the guy who met us there. The only people I knew who wore dark glasses in the December snow were Lamb's bodyguards. He told us to follow him across the lot. The place seemed to be completely empty. Eventually, a black limo appeared and flashed its lights at us. Lamb's guy told us to stop opposite it. If you had to die somewhere in New York City, an empty parking lot in JFK in December would be the worst place in the world you could wish for. I sure hoped Joe could find us okay. If he was around, he was doing a good job of not showing it. Nothing seemed to be happening at Lamb's end, but you couldn't see a thing through the black windows of the limo. I opened a window slightly. The air was so cold it was painful to breathe. Tommy Lamb stayed inside. He had planned everything very well. The middle of a huge parking lot. Nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide. But he hadn't planned for the fog. How would Joe and the NYPD get me out of this one? The bodyguard came over and tapped on the window, signaling for me to get out. He searched me for weapons. I was clean. Then he spoke. I couldn't hear a word he said for the airplane noise.
"You'll have to speak up,"
I shouted.
"Mr. Lamb wishes to know if you have the payment,"
said the bodyguard.
"I have everything Mr. Lamb needs," I answered. "I have instructions to take the payment to Mr. Lamb."
"Not so fast, buddy. We do that. First, I need to know if Angela Lake is safe." The bodyguard went back to Lamb's car. There was a short conversation. I could see clouds of white breath in the freezing air. A minute later, he returned.
"You will see Mrs. Lake very soon," he said.
The other bodyguard got out of the limo with Angela Lake. Apart from looking very angry, she seemed to be all right. In the distance, I could hear drunken singing, probably from a down and out. At least someone was enjoying himself on Christmas morning. "Good," I said to the bodyguard. "I'll ask Lake to take the payment to Lamb's car. 1 case full of jewelry. As soon as Lamb has received payment, I expect the safe return of Mrs. Lake. But I want to see her standing next to Lamb between the 2 cars before I send Lake over with the case." The bodyguard returned to Lamb's limo for another discussion. Meanwhile, I went around to the passenger door, took Lake outside, and untied him. The experience of being tied up hadn't improved his language.
"You bastard, Marley! Why did you have to do that?" he demanded.
"I enjoy it. Now listen, we don't do anything until we see your wife standing next to Lamb. Then you hand over the case. Nice and slow. Just behave yourself." Mrs. Lake was standing next to Lamb, blowing on her hands to keep warm. The bodyguard returned.
"Mr. Lamb is ready, Mr. Marley."
"I'm sending Lake over now," I said. Lake got out and started walking toward Lamb, carrying the case. I watched from behind a car door. Through the fog, I could just make out a down and out, so drunk he could hardly stand. Joe's acting skills were perfect. He'd locked up enough drunks in his time with the NYPD. Lamb took the case from Lake, placed it on the ground, and opened it. He appeared to be happy with the jewelry. The first thing he noticed was the diamond necklace. He held it up and called to his limo. A little bearded guy got out and hurried over. He fitted a jeweler's glass in his eye and examined the necklace closely. Then he grinned at Lamb and handed it over. Lamb looked at it almost as if he were in love with the thing. Then he nodded to the bodyguard who was holding Angela Lake. She was released and stood by her husband. They didn't look pleased to see each other again as they approached our car. Robert Lake just looked down at the ground, while Angela Lake stared at her husband coldly. By now, Joe was behind Lamb's car. I could just hear singing above the noise of airplanes.
I recognized the Christmas song, even though it was completely out of tune. Then there was the sound of breaking glass. Lamb was nervous. He looked at Joe appearing out of the fog and shouted to one of his bodyguards, "Victor, get that stupid drunk out of here!" One bodyguard left and walked over to Joe. The jeweler was now sorting through the other stuff in the briefcase, but he wasn't smiling anymore. His expression became serious, then angry. He shouted above the airplane noise, "Mr. Lamb, you got one nice diamond necklace worth about $500,000. The rest of the stuff isn't worth $500. "You sure?" asked Lamb. "Look, mister, I've worked all my life on 47th Street. I know worthless rocks when I see them." Lamb and the other bodyguard stared furiously at the jeweler and the lakes. I was looking somewhere else. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Joe bring a gun handle down sharply on the head of Victor. He fell to the ground unconscious. You couldn't hear anything except airplanes. Lamb, now furious, pointed at the lakes. "I've had enough of working with amateurs. You two could never do anything right. I did a professional job for you when I hacked into Osaka Net. I trusted you, Lake, but you're not a man of honor. You don't deserve to live." He suddenly paused. "What's happened to Victor?" Lamb turned and saw his bodyguard lying unconscious in the snow. "What the hell's going on here?" he demanded. "Kill the Lakes and Marley!" Lamb's remaining bodyguard had already lifted his gun when I heard the roar of a shotgun from behind me. The second bodyguard fell into the snow. Joe was now next to me and passed me an NYPD police special. Joe's gun was pointing at Lamb. "Drop the gun or you're next!" shouted Joe. "You'd better think carefully," I said to Lamb. "You don't have any choice now. We have 2 guns against your 1. If you shoot first, you'll get 1, maybe 2 of us. But I can promise you, you'll be dead. I've got an ex-NYPD marksman here who never misses. So ask yourself, do I feel lucky?" I'd always wanted to use that line. Lamb remained cool. "I'd rather be shot here than die in prison," he said. He had a good point. Lamb had nothing to lose now. Lamb's driver and the jeweler didn't share the same opinion. The jeweler jumped into the car and they made their escape. They were doing the sensible thing. "Drop the gun, Lamb!" shouted Joe. Lamb ignored the order. He was a desperate man, and in that instant, I knew he would try to shoot us all if he could. I acted quickly. I threw myself to the ground, taking Angela Lake with me. 3 shots. 2 pistol shots from Lamb were answered by a single shot from Joe. Lamb lay lifeless in the snow. Angela Lake was lying across me, and Robert Lake was lying face down. Angela got to her feet and pulled him up. "Robert! Oh, my God, speak to me!" she screamed at him. "Here, let me," I said. I pulled away his coat and jacket. Blood was covering his shirt. An entry and an exit wound. The bullet had passed through his shoulder. He was lucky. He'd probably live. His face was gray. I used the cell phone to call an ambulance and then turned to Angela Lake. "Make yourself useful, Mrs. Lake," I said. "Help me get him into the back of the Mercedes. Now you've got to stop that bleeding. Keep him upright. 2 pieces of material, anything will do. Press them hard against the entry and exit wounds and keep them there. Do it now if you want him to live." Angela Lake followed my instructions without a word. I told the driver to start the engine to get some heat in the car. Robert Lake's eyes opened briefly. "Mr. Marley? You're right. It's a rough, tough world," said Lake. "Don't talk," I said. "And Mrs. Lake, don't give him anything to drink." I got out of the car and crossed over to Joe, who was looking down at the bodies in the snow. "What a way to spend Christmas, boss," said Joe. "I'll have to stop working for you. It's getting kind of dangerous." In the snow around Lamb shone little flashes of brilliant color. The jewelry. The diamond necklace was still held tightly in Lamb's hand, as if, even in death, he refused to let go of it. I pulled Lamb's fingers apart and picked up the necklace. People say that diamonds are a girl's best friend. These diamonds hadn't won any friends. They'd just cost 2 lives. We checked the bodyguard who Joe had hit on the head. He was breathing. Now there was a noise above the sound of airplanes. The scream of a police car. Our backup. Chapter 15. Presents. Soon the NYPD car appeared out of the fog and parked by Lamb's limo. Oldenburg got out and looked around with a surprised expression.
"Marley, you should stay clear of bad company," he said.
"It's a bad habit of mine. What took you so long?" I asked.
"Had a little trouble with this cell phone," explained Oldenburg. "Last thing we heard, you were approaching long-term parking. Then the line went dead. We checked with the airport authorities and found out there were 2 vacant parking lots. They seemed to be the most likely meeting points. We just checked out the first one when we heard the gunshots."
"I got some Christmas presents for you," I said. "I called an ambulance for Lake. He should live, and Angela Lake's okay. One of Lamb's guys is unconscious. But as for Lamb and this one..." Oldenburg looked at the lifeless forms in the snow.
"Okay, Marley," said Oldenburg. "Give me the main points before I take the formal statements at headquarters."
Lamb wanted the rocks as payment for the work he'd done for the Lakes, hacking into Osaka net. If all had gone as planned, maybe he'd be on a flight abroad by now. Most of the rocks were copies. The necklace was the only real item in the case. Lamb brought a jeweler with him to check the stuff. When he realized they were copies, he was going to kill me and the Lakes. I handed Oldenburg the necklace. "Keep that safe. The rest of the stuff is worthless." The ambulance arrived, and Robert Lake and the unconscious bodyguard were taken away. "Now," I said to Oldenburg, "I need a few answers from Angela Lake." We got into the back of Lake's Mercedes, where Angela Lake was sitting quietly. She looked shaken, but kept herself under control. Oldenburg kept his mouth shut and let me run the show. I looked her straight in the eye and made sure I had her complete attention. "Mrs. Lake, the reality is that you and your husband are going to jail for a long time. The only way you're going to shorten that sentence is to cooperate and make a full confession." Angela looked at Oldenburg, almost as if she was doubting my word.
"Marley's right," said Oldenburg. "You're in deep enough trouble already. To start with, there's the hacking operation. Then you set up Marley to make it look as if he'd mugged you. Marley could have gone to prison instead of you."
Angela Lake nodded, took a deep breath, and began.
"Robert's a computer expert, but when it comes to business, I do all the thinking. Lamb wouldn't wait for his money, so we agreed to pay him in jewelry. It was my idea to set you up. It was the only way I could think of to get Lamb off our backs."
Yeah, I said quickly. "We know all that. Answer this one. Where are the other jewels? The real stuff?" She paused for a moment, biting her lip. Then she said quietly,
"We don't have them."
"Louder. I want to hear this," I said.
"We don't have them,"
she shouted at me. "Give me the full story," I said.
"The jewelry was one of the few things of value we owned," she began. "Everything else was rented, hired, or borrowed. I'd been quietly selling off the jewelry since November. I knew back then that the corporation could go under. I tried to turn everything possible into cash to pay off debts. I'd had perfect copies made of the jewelry, so if I appeared in public, people wouldn't suspect. And if the NYPD had fallen for the story of the mugging, Lamb would have been after you. And that would have given us some time. We were planning to get the insurance money and then disappear."
"So why not pay Lamb off in cash?" Why go through this performance with the jewelry if you knew the stuff wasn't real? I demanded.
I had no choice. The bank had frozen our accounts, corporate and personal. It isn't public knowledge yet. There aren't going to be any December salaries.
So, you tried to pull off one final trick. Did you seriously think a guy like Lamb would have been taken in? 2 people are lying out there dead, and it could just as easily be you lying there. You think you're so damn important that you could play around with people's lives. Angela Lake sat in silence, looking down at her feet. Her eyes were full of tears. Pity for her would have been a waste of good feelings. You can do plenty more crying in Sing Sing, I said. I still had the use of Lake's Mercedes. I suggested to Oldenburg that we could put Angela Lake in the NYPD car, and we could travel to police headquarters in more comfort. Police Plaza, driver, I said. I'm sorry, but I don't reckon there'll be a job for you with Lake Software after Christmas. Just what I suspected, Mr. Marley, replied the driver. I've got another job to go to. Is there a drink in this car? I asked. There's a choice of scotch in the minibar. Lake may not have known too much about the real world, but he knew a good scotch. As I poured out drinks for Joe, Oldenburg, and myself, my hands started to shake. Delayed shock. You never think it affects you at the time, but it always does. I phoned Stella. Hi, Stella. It's finished. I won't go into all the details now, but Joe and I are fine, so you can stop worrying and enjoy Christmas with your family. The fog was now lifting, and the car drove quickly through the suburbs of Brooklyn. It wasn't long before we were crossing the Brooklyn Bridge into Manhattan, Lower East Side. For the first time that day, there were clear blue skies. The gray waters of the East River now shone golden in the pale sunshine. It felt good to be alive. At the beginning of the week, I'd had nothing to do. Now I'd had more than enough excitement. I wouldn't complain about divorce work or finding missing persons ever again.
Here's the beginning of another book at this level. In the Shadow of the Mountain by Helen Naylor. Chapter 1. Family Lunch. On the 23rd of April, 1998, Edward Crowe came out from the glacier on the north side of the Matterhorn mountain above Zermatt in Switzerland. He had been dead for 74 years. And on the same day, over 2,000 kilometres away, the 3 direct descendants of Edward Crowe, his daughter Marjorie and his 2 grandchildren, Claire and Andrew, were enjoying a rare day together at the family home in Windermere, centre of England's Lake District. Claire had driven up from London the night before, arriving very late at her mother's house. She had slept deeply in her old childhood bed and hadn't woken until after 9 o'clock. She'd stayed in bed for a few minutes, enjoying the quiet outside her window. Here she was Claire the daughter again, rather than Claire the independent, successful journalist. She loved coming home to Windermere, even though she'd had her own home and her own life down in London for many years. There was something about the northern part of England, and especially the Lake District, where she'd grown up, that was part of her. Despite the awful 400-kilometre-plus journey up the M6 motorway, Britain's biggest car park, someone had described it as, she always found herself relaxing the further north she got. Usually, by the time she turned off the motorway, it was dark and she couldn't see the rocky hills or the waters of Lake Windermere, but she knew they were there. On this visit, she was hoping that being back in this magical landscape would give her time to think about her future. She knew she couldn't continue working at the newspaper for much longer. It was not what she wanted anymore. But giving it up was a frightening thought. What else was there in her life?